Landscaping and fencing. We're going to look at the landscaping and fencing section of our pricing sheet. Creating accurate costs for our fencing is really simple. We enter some basic details and everything we need will be worked out. If we scroll down, we can see that this is where we can also allow for any turfing that may be needed. If we aren't doing any landscaping or fencing in our quote, we just close the section. It's simple. Just untick this box. We do have landscaping and fencing in our quote, so we'll just reopen that. The wastage percentage for this entire section is here. We can see it's in a yellow box, so we can change it if we want. Fencing. The first subsection is the fencing. Pricing the fencing is simple. Let's take a look. We'll start at the top and work our way down. First, we need to tell the programme the type of fencing that we'll be doing. We click the thumbnail. Here we can see the available options. So panel fence, close lap board, with the board going vertically, and finally wire fencing. We just click the one we want. We're doing a close lap board. We click it. Our pricing sheet is now set for the type of fencing we've chosen. In this red box, we enter the length of the fencing. On our job, it's 33 linear metres. If we click the question mark, we have a visual reference showing the measurement that is required. Now we enter the actual height of the fence. Again, we can click the question mark for a visual reference. The picture explains we enter the height of the fence from the ground to the top of the fence. We don't need to worry about the height that's going into the ground. This is dealt with separately. OK, the height of our fence from the ground to the top is 1.8 linear metres. We need to tell the programme the type of post hole we will be doing. We've got two options. So if we're using an auger to dig out post holes, we click the round post hole option. The measurements for this will open. We can check, and if necessary adjust the diameter of the hole we will be digging. The depth of the hole is automatically calculated for us, based on the percentage of the fence post that's going into the ground. The volume of the hole is also worked out for us, and this is used to work out the concrete. If we were digging the holes out by hand and creating square fence post holes, we'd click the square post hole picture. Again, we're provided with red boxes that contain default dimensions for the length and width of the hole. We can change these if we want. The depth of the hole is automatically worked out for us based on the percentage that is going into the ground, and the volume of the hole, for the concrete, is worked out too. We are going to have square fence post holes. The default measurements are correct for us, so let's enter that in. The height of the fence post we will need is automatically worked out for us in this white box. The blue text here tells us that 33% of this post is going into the ground. It also tells us that if we choose fence spikes, no percentage will be allowed for going into the ground. Just to show you, if we click the post's red question mark, in here we can adjust this 33% allowance. If, for example, we change this to 50% and enter it in, see, the height of the post that we will need increases. OK, we told the programme the type of fence we're doing, entered the length and height, and specified the type of post hole. Almost everything that we will need for this fence has been worked out for us. There are a couple of items that may need our judgment. Let's take a look at what's been calculated. First, we have the fence posts. We can see the quantity that we'll need. The blue text here also confirms the length of post that we'll need. We need a post that is 2.4 linear metres. If we adjust the selected post to this one, that isn't actually long enough. We're provided with helpful red warning text that lets us know the selection is not long enough to meet the requirements of the fence. We'll just change that back to a length that's suitable. The red warning text goes, meaning this chosen length is long enough for the fence height we want. We'll click on the question mark again. OK, as we saw earlier, in this picture, we can adjust the percentage of the post that's to go into the ground. We can also change the centres between the posts. If we were doing panel fencing, it would be sensible to ensure the spacing matched the size of the panel. Fence post caps are automatically worked out for us. If we don't want these, we can switch them off like this, and the costs are removed. We are going to use these, so we'll just switch them back on. We have the option to allow for post spikes here. By default, they are switched off. Keep an eye on the height of fence post required. If we now switch these on, the height of fence post automatically changes. As the spikes remove the need for the post to go into the ground, the length of the post is reduced. If spikes are being used, we must remember to choose a different post that is a suitable length. We're not using spikes, so we will leave the post length as it is and switch these off. Gravel board is next. Let's click the question mark. The height of the gravel board is shown in this yellow box, so we can adjust this if we want. There is an important note. The blue text explains we need to make sure the height of the gravel board is entered correctly, as the programme will deduct this from the height of the fence to work out the quantity of closed board panel fencing that's required. We can adjust the material in the drop-down menu. We saw earlier that the spacing between our posts was 1.8. Currently, the length of the gravel board is 2.4. Let's change it to this one, as it's a better fit for the spacing. If we don't want gravel board, we can switch it off like this, and the costs will be removed. We'll just turn that back on. We haven't selected fence panels, so nothing is calculated. But just to show you, if we switch this to fence panel, instantly everything recalculates, and the fence panels that we would need are worked out. Fence panel clips are also calculated. We can see how they're being worked out and adjust it in the picture if we want. If these aren't needed, we just untick the box. We'll just change this back to our closed board fencing. Here we can see the quantity of fence boards we will need for our closed board fencing. If we click the question mark, we can see the overlap allowance. It is in a yellow box, so we can adjust this if we want. The blue text here explains how this is being calculated. If we click the info icon, we're provided with additional information on how this is worked out. Back on the pricing sheet, we can select a different material here in the drop-down menu if required. Just to show you, if we choose a board that is a different width, the quantity of fence board that is allowed will change based on the width of our selection. As we've chosen a wider board, the amount we need has been dramatically reduced. We'll just change that back. The cant rail is worked out here. Let's click the question mark. We can see how this is being calculated, and we can change the number of cant rails allowed. By default it is 3. We will leave this as it is, but it can be changed if necessary. Fence wiring is next. Nothing is calculated as we haven't chosen a wire fence, but we'll just switch it to a wire fence. Again, everything instantly changes. The wire is worked out here. We can see the quantity of rolls needed. Straining bolts would require our judgment. Just enter the quantity needed into the blue box. Straining wire is worked out for us. If we click the question mark, we can adjust the default number of rows if we wish. We'll just change this. See? The quantity required automatically adjusts. Here's the bracing. We can click the question mark to see how this is being calculated. Changing these settings is easy. We just enter our preferences into the clearly marked boxes in the picture. If bracing isn't needed, we just untick this box and remove it from our costs. Now we've looked at the wire fencing options, we'll just switch it back to the closed board. If a gate or gates are needed, we just enter the quantity required here. Instantly, all the associated items are worked out. The hinges, bolts and handle. We can see the quantity that's being allowed per gate. We can adjust these numbers in the picture if required. We can allow for trellis on top of our fencing. If we click the blue info icon, we're provided with detailed information and examples of how the programme will allow for this. If trellis is entered, the programme will look at the dimensions of the trellis. To ensure the height of the fence is correct, it will deduct the fencing panels for our closed board that will no longer be needed due to the trellis taking their place. Just to show you, if we enter 6 in the blue trellis box, instantly the number of closed board panels reduces. We're not using trellis, so we'll just remove that number. The aggregates for our post holes are here. We can click on the question mark to see how these are being worked out. Here's the cement. The mix can be changed by using the drop-down menu. We don't require a post hole auger, but if one is needed, just enter the number of days into this blue box. Here's the mixer. Again, enter the number of days, if any, that it will be required. We'll want it for 1 day. All the fixings are worked out for us. So the gravel board fixings, the fence board fixings, and our cant rail fixings. We can see exactly how these are being worked out by clicking on the red question marks, and we can change the way they're calculating if we wish. Waste disposals here. If we aren't disposing of these soils off-site, we can uncheck this box and the costs will be removed. We will be, so we'll just retick this. As with previous waste disposal sections we've viewed, we can see the expansion rate and change it if we want. We can also adjust the method of waste disposal if required. OK, so the fencing subsection is really simple. We just select the type of fencing and post hole, then work our way down, checking the details and entering any of the optional items that are required. Turfing. We're going to take a look at the turfing subsection. This is really easy to use. First, we enter how many square metres of turf we'll require. We'll put in 33. Instantly everything works out. Here's the topsoil. If we click the question mark, we can see this is calculated based on the topsoil being this depth. It is in a yellow box, so we can change it if we want. Here's the turf. The programme's looked at the turf that's been selected and worked out how many rolls of it will be required. We can change the type of turf in the drop-down menu. If a turf roller is to be used, just enter the number of days it will be required into the blue box. We'll put in 1 day. If any soils associated with the turf need to be removed, we just enter the number of cubic metres into this box. Then just check the waste disposal method meets with our requirements. Extra row and totals. All of the common and not so common items and tasks that may be needed for our fencing and landscaping are here in this pricing section. But if something we want to allow for in this section isn't listed, we can add it in. Just click the Add Extra Row button here and follow the instructions. We can see the totals for the plant, materials, hours, labour and overall total here. If we want this to be a PC sum, just check this box.